In the food space, Papa John's down 17% on the day. Some concerns here about their growth story going forward. And well, there's some bigger concerns going on in the restaurant space as well. And that is our top story, a focus on restaurant stocks amid a food safety scare that is making things maybe a little bit more complicated for an industry that was already dealing with a myriad of other complex issues. The largest outbreak ever recorded in the U.S. for Cyclospora. It's a parasite that causes severe diarrhea. That outbreak was quietly identified months ago, but it was only in early June that the mass public really became aware of it. Since then, an index of restaurant stocks that includes McDonald's and Chipotle, Brinker, Wendy's, Aramark, and others, it's been under pressure. Take shares of Cava. They're down 9% since that time. Yum Brands has slid about 10%. And then there was this closely held upstart chain called Salad & Go, which just filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, saying the outbreak worsened its existing business challenges. And that's not all. There's a salmonella outbreak out there, a small one, involving jalapeno peppers that has begun to unfold. And there's a lot of confusion about the CDC's messaging on this, or rather, the lack thereof. And that has a lot of customers just deciding we're not going to take any chances. We're just going to stay away from raw veggies and, quite frankly, the restaurants that sell them. We just heard from one of those restaurants, Sweetgreen, salad chain, raw vegetables. Same-store sales growth, it was down. It was expected to be down, and it was down more than expected. They gave a forecast for the full year and said same-store sales, they will be down about 8%. And they also talked about how there's just a lot of uncertainty with regards to that forecast because they still haven't quite figured out what's going on with regards to the food recall and the CDC's approach to addressing it. Our next guest has over 20 years of experience covering the restaurant sector. RJ Hottovy is head of analytical research at the market intelligence firm Placer.ai. And RJ, I want to start off with this idea of foot traffic. And we should just point out for Sweetgreen, the public awareness of this Cyclospora outbreak kind of came at the end of the quarter. So it probably wasn't fully reflected in their numbers. But when you look across all of the landscape of restaurants out there, are you starting to see any real meaningful drop in foot traffic?
Yeah, thanks, Romaine. Thanks for having me. And I think we are starting to see, it's a mixed bag across the restaurant industry in terms of visitation trends. Certainly the names that have been more affected and have been more in the headlines, including Taco Bell and some of the salad chains, they have been more impacted. For example, Taco Bell, at its low point, we saw about a 30% decline on daily traffic compared to a year ago. That was right after the initial CDC announcement in July 16th, July 17th, 18th. That was the weekend we saw a lot of pressure. Since then, it's recovered to about negative low double digits is where we've seen Taco Bell running. Some of the salad chains, they've been running quite a bit negative, anywhere negative mid-single digits to high single digits, depending on the concept, depending on where in the country. And I think your point is very important here, too. It's all about communication. When consumers don't have confidence in what happened to cause the outbreak, what solutions were put in place to make it happen, that makes it very difficult. And that's typically where we see pressure on visitation trends linger a lot longer for these type of chains.
I am curious, though, when we look at past foodborne outbreaks and the impacts on some of these companies, I mean, is there sort of a general timeline where, we find out what's happening, the government or whoever gets a hold of it, the companies, find a way to refresh their inventory and refresh their marketing? Like, what is the timetable? Is that something where they kind of snaps back fairly quickly, or is this kind of a lingering issue that they're going to have to deal with for quarters to come?
It typically is a multi-month recovery process, and I think we've got a couple examples we can look back to. And certainly each situation is unique in terms of what happened to cause the outbreak and the recovery message from the companies that were affected. I think we can look back to McDonald's in 2024, E. coli scare. They were able to effectively come out and communicate what happened, where the impact happened. And as a result, we didn't see as much of an impact. They, at their high point, were down high single digit, low double digit, but we managed to recover pretty quickly, and within, I'd say, 2 months, they were back to kind of a normal trend line. Chipotle 2015 and 16, that was a different story where the company wasn't able to communicate what had happened, and then they had a second foodborne illness situation that caused that to run in the negative 30, negative 40% range in terms of same-store sales for several months. So it really depends on the severity.
Yeah.
Right now, Taco Bell is kind of in between both McDonald's and the Chipotle situation, certainly trending more towards the McDonald's timeline, but communication and explaining to consumers what happened. Plus, there usually is a period where the chains typically do some deeper discounting to drive people back in. We did see towards the end of July Mexican pizza, the $1 Mexican pizza, did drive positive traffic for one day for Taco Bell,
Yeah.
but it's since retrenched since then.
Yeah, I just want to, we're in conversation right now with RJ Hottovy. I just want to bring to the attention of our viewers here, we're still keeping an eye on Sweetgreen shares, down about 12%. We had mentioned before that they were projecting a slowdown in same-store sales growth for the full year. That forecast is down 7 to down 8%. Now, it had a previous forecast of down 2 to down 4%. So basically saying that things are going to be a lot worse than they had originally expected, and they specifically single out the, quote, multi-state outbreak of Cyclospora since mid-July and say that the pace and timing of the recovery remain uncertain. But for right now, that is the forecast, and it is not good. And RJ, I do want to get to this issue, though, that even before this outbreak, Sweetgreen, and not just Sweetgreen, but a lot of these fast casual chains were already grappling with customer issues, somewhat related to their pricing. The idea that, you know, at least at Sweetgreen, you're paying $15 to $20 for a salad. Yeah. Even a place like Cava and some of the other places that maybe a little, and Chipotle, maybe a little bit more affordable, still on a value proposition level, we're not necessarily resonating with a lot of consumers.
No, you're 100% correct there. And we have seen that limited service restaurants, both quick service restaurants and fast casual, have generally been under pressure this year. When we look at year-over-year visitation trends on same-store basis, they are generally down. And I think you pointed out a lot of the factors. I do think perceived pricing and relative value are key things that consumers are watching right now. We've seen a lot of cross-visitation trends with grocery. We do see that value-oriented grocers and convenience stores and warehouse clubs are becoming more competitive when you look at visitation data. So that is one area. I do think that consumers are, finding, other ways to, stretch their household budget and finding other channels to purchase into. So I think you're exactly right. It is a challenging environment right now. And certainly the food safety questions that have been raised have only escalated that.